What would you do if you discovered a 1971 Ford Falcon XY GTHO Phase IV gathering dust in your grandfather's barn? With only 300 ever made and current values exceeding $1 million, these forgotten treasures are the stuff of automotive dreams. Today, we're counting down Australia's 12 rarest muscle machines, cars that were built in limited numbers but packed with unlimited attitude. From Bathurst legends to street-legal rockets, these aren't just cars that you shouldn't sell. These are cars that most people will never even get the chance to buy. Let's start our countdown with number 12, the 1977 Holden Torana A9X. With just 405 units produced, this compact missile packed a 308 cubic inch V8 engine into a relatively small body, creating a power-to-weight ratio that dominated Australian motorsport. The A9X wasn't just fast, it was untouchable at Bathurst, where Peter Brock piloted it to a victory so commanding that he won by 6 laps, a margin never equaled before or since. These little terrors now fetch well over $500,000 at auction, if you can find one. At number 11, we have the 1988 Holden VL Commodore SS Group A Walkinshaw. Limited at 750 examples, this aerodynamically enhanced sedan might look like it's wearing too much plastic surgery, earning it the unflattering nickname, the Plastic Pig. But those bizarre body extensions were all about cutting through the air at high speed. Beneath its controversial exterior sat a modified 5.0-liter V8 producing 180 kilowatts of power. When new, many dealers struggled to sell them due to their polarizing looks. Today, the same Plastic Pig will set you back over $300,000. With pristine examples pushing toward $500,000. Our number 10 spot belongs to the 1996 HSV VS GTS-R, one of the first modern collectible Aussie muscle cars. With just 85 units produced, all painted in the eye-searing yellow dolly color scheme, this was Holden's special vehicle's most extreme creation of the 1990s. Its 5.7-liter V8 produced 215 kilowatts, making it a true performance monster by the standards of its day. The GTS-R represented Australia's answer to America's Corvette, albeit with 4 doors and enough boot space for a family camping trip. These yellow beasts now command prices approaching $400,000. Rounding out this first group at number 9 is the 2002 Ford Falcon T3 TS50. Tickford's farewell performance vehicle before Ford Performance Vehicles took over Ford's high-performance operations. With only 141 ever made, this 250-kilowatt, 5.6-liter V8 monster represented the end of an era for Australian Ford tuning. While not as visually outlandish as some of its competitors, the TS50 focused on what mattered: balanced performance and serious straight-line speed. What made these Australian muscle cars truly special wasn't just their rarity or power, it was how they were engineered. While American muscle cars excelled at quarter-mile drag races, Australian performance cars had to conquer the punishing 1,000-kilometer Bathurst endurance race. This required machines that could handle corners as well as they could devour straights, all while surviving extreme temperatures and punishment for hours on end. The result was a breed of muscle car with better cooling systems, more sophisticated suspensions, and more robust components than many of their American counterparts. These weren't just straight-line specialists. They were all-around performance machines that could handle Australia's unique conditions, from scorching outback highways to twisty mountain passes. Now, Australian engineering prowess created impressive performance cars, but government regulations accidentally created automotive legends. When racing authorities demanded manufacturers build and sell their track weapons to the public, something extraordinary happened. Cars that were essentially too insane for the street appeared with license plates attached. These homologation specials weren't just fast. They were barely disguised race machines designed to dominate at Bathurst before reluctantly making their way to showroom floors. At number 8, we find the 2017 HSV GTS-R W1, with only 275 units ever produced. This wasn't just another muscle car. It represented the swan song of Australian automotive manufacturing, the final thunderous roar before Holden's lights went out forever. What made the W1 special was its heart. A supercharged LS9 engine transplanted directly from the Corvette ZR1, pumping out a staggering 474 kilowatts. This wasn't just the most powerful Holden ever built, it was the culmination of decades of engineering excellence, the final statement from a dying brand. Moving to number 7, the 1970 Ford Falcon XW GTHO Phase IV stands as a testament to Ford's singular obsession, conquering Mount Panorama. With just 287 examples rolling off the assembly line, this purpose-built Bathurst weapon packed a 351 cubic inch Cleveland V8 generating 291 horsepower. Ford paired this monster with a robust 4-speed top-loader transmission that could handle the punishment of endurance racing while still being reliable enough for street use. Every aspect of the Phase II was engineered with one goal in mind: victory at Australia's most demanding circuit. Number 6 brings us to Chrysler's answer to Ford and Holden dominance, the 1972 Valiant Charger RT E38. Limited to 294 units, this Bathurst Special took a different approach than its V8 competitors. Instead of following the big displacement formula, Chrysler developed the legendary 6-pack engine, a 6-cylinder power plant fed by 3 2-barrel carburetors delivering 280 horsepower. This innovative configuration allowed the Charger to punch well above its weight class, proving that creative engineering could overcome the seemingly obvious advantages of larger engines. Rounding out this section at number 5 is perhaps the most notorious homologation special, the 1971 Ford Falcon XY GTHO Phase IV. With exactly 300 examples produced, this machine held the title of world's fastest four-door car, capable of reaching speeds up to 141 miles per hour with its 300 horsepower, 351 cubic inch V8. In today's world of 200 miles per hour hypercars, that might not sound impressive, but in 1971, this was a family sedan that could outrun Porsches and Ferraris while carrying 5 passengers and luggage. What made these homologation specials truly remarkable wasn't just their raw power, but the engineering sophistication that underpinned their performance. Racing regulations effectively forced automakers to put their most advanced technologies into street cars, resulting in machines decades ahead of their time. The Phase III incorporated a Detroit locker differential that dramatically improved traction and handling, technology that wouldn't become commonplace in performance cars until years later. The engineering brilliance extended to seemingly minor details that made enormous differences on track. Advanced suspension geometries allowed these heavyweight machines to corner with unexpected agility. Cooling systems were massively overbuilt to handle the punishment of racing in Australia's scorching climate. Brake systems featured components that would later become standard on dedicated sports cars. These weren't just cars built to satisfy a regulation. They were opportunities for engineers to showcase their most advanced ideas without the usual production compromises. When you purchased a homologation special, you weren't just buying a car. You were essentially acquiring a racing team's accumulated knowledge in drivable form. Perhaps most remarkable is that these vehicles were legitimately available to anyone who walked into a dealership with enough cash. Imagine picking up your kids from school in what was essentially the same machine that professional drivers would pilot around Bathurst at terrifying speeds. It created a unique connection between motorsports and everyday driving that wouldn't be possible in today's highly specialized automotive landscape. That connection between racetracks and family driveways became even more precious with our next 3 contenders. When Australia's infamous supercar scare erupted in 1972, politicians suddenly questioned whether 160-mile-per-hour family sedans belonged on public roads at all. These weren't just fast cars. They were endangered species created in the brief golden moment before government regulations forever changed the muscle car landscape. Number 4 on our countdown is the 1969 Holden HT Monaro GTS 350. While its production run of 743 units makes it the most common car in the segment, don't be fooled. Finding one today is like hunting for automotive treasure. This was Holden's answer to American muscle, featuring an imported 350 cubic inch Chevrolet V8 that gave the Monaro serious credentials against the Camaros and Mustangs of the era. The HT Monaro marked a pivotal moment for Australian motorsport, establishing Holden as a serious contender on the mountain. Moving to number 3, we find ourselves looking at one of the most fascinating engineering achievements of the era, the 1973 Chrysler Valiant Charger E49. With just 149 examples ever built, this car represents the absolute pinnacle of Chrysler Australia's 6-pack technology. What made this car special wasn't a massive V8, but rather an inline 6-cylinder engine with 3 2-barrel carburetors. This configuration allowed the relatively small engine to produce an impressive 302 horsepower, enough to embarrass many 8-cylinder competitors of the day. The E49 wasn't just powerful on paper, it delivered on the road. In 1973, you could drive this car straight from the showroom floor to a drag strip and run the quarter mile in just 14.4 seconds. That's faster than many modern family sedans today, achieved nearly 50 years ago with technology that's practically prehistoric by comparison. The E49 represented the final evolution of Chrysler's homologation specials before changing regulations and declining sales forced the company to abandon their performance car ambitions. Our second place contender is the 1971 Holden HQ Monaro GTS 350. With fewer than 300 units ever produced, this car represented the last gasp of the classic Monaro muscle cars before emission regulations drastically changed the performance landscape. The HQ Monaro combined the raw power of its American-sourced 350 cubic inch V8 with styling that many enthusiasts consider the most attractive of any Australian muscle car. Its rarity wasn't planned. It was the unfortunate result of changing market conditions and increasing pressure from safety advocates and environmental regulations. What makes these three cars particularly exceptional isn't just their limited production numbers, but how they were used. Unlike modern collectibles that owners purchase and immediately store away, these machines were bought to be driven hard. Owners thrashed them around tracks, modified them for more power, and used them as daily transportation in Australia's harsh conditions. Many were wrecked in accidents, succumbed to rust in coastal areas, or were simply used up and discarded when they became just old cars before their historical significance was recognized. This leads to perhaps the most remarkable aspect of these automotive unicorns, their survival rate. Experts in Australia automotive history estimate that fewer than half of these cars exist today in original condition. For every preserved museum piece, there are several that have been lost forever, crashed beyond repair, modified beyond recognition, or simply abandoned to the elements. Each passing year makes their remaining examples more valuable, both financially and historically. The stories of these three remarkable vehicles are inextricably linked to the political climate of the early 1970s Australia. The supercar scare wasn't just media hysteria. It represented genuine concern from government officials about putting what were essentially racing machines in the hands of ordinary citizens. Newspapers published alarming headlines about 160-mile-per-hour family sedans, and politicians responded with threats of new regulations that would effectively ban such high-performance vehicles from public roads. That political hysteria didn't just threaten Australia's muscle car industry, it created automotive history's greatest what if. Imagine a car so potent that the government refused to let it exist. A machine killed by nothing more than 4 words in a Sunday newspaper. 160-mile-per-hour supercars soon. The 1972 Ford Falcon XA GTHO Phase IV isn't just our rarest Australian muscle car, it's a ghost that never got the chance to haunt Bathurst. While most rare cars earn their status through limited production runs, the Phase IV stands alone as a vehicle that was essentially legislated out of existence. Ford engineers had already completed 4 examples, 3 dedicated racing prototypes, and a single road-going production model, when the project was abruptly terminated. These weren't just incrementally improved versions of the Phase III, they represented an entirely new level of performance engineering. Under the hood, Ford had developed specifically reinforced engine blocks that could withstand the punishment of endurance racing while delivering more than 350 horsepower, a staggering feature for 1972. But the Phase IV's advantages extended far beyond raw power. The suspension geometry was completely reworked for improved cornering stability at high speeds, while aerodynamic tweaks reduced drag and enhanced downforce, critical for maintaining control at Bathurst's notorious mountain section. Perhaps most telling of Ford's racing intentions were the massive fuel tanks designed to reduce pit stops during endurance events. These weren't street cars adapted for racing, they were purpose-built racing machines barely disguised as family sedans. The Phase IV represented the ultimate evolution of the GTHO bloodline, with every component scrutinized and improved for maximum performance. What makes this story particularly fascinating is how quickly everything unraveled. That fateful Sunday newspaper headline sparked immediate political backlash. Government officials, already concerned about rising road fatalities, saw these 160-mile-per-hour family cars as irresponsible and dangerous. The public relations storm forced Ford's hand, and the Phase IV program was shut down before it ever reached showrooms. The aftermath created one of the most peculiar situations in automotive collecting. The 3 racing prototypes, already built and ready for competition, were hastily converted back to standard Falcon specifications and quietly sold to the public. For decades, their whereabouts remained largely unknown, with enthusiasts speculating about which unremarkable-looking Falcons might secretly contain Phase IV DNA. Meanwhile, the sole surviving production model embarked on a remarkable journey through the collector car world. Initially sold as a regular vehicle, its true identity and significance gradually became recognized as the Phase IV story spread among enthusiasts. When this unicorn finally crossed the auction block in 2018, it commanded an astonishing $2 million. A price that reflects not just its extreme rarity, but its status as the automotive equivalent of a lost masterpiece. What makes this car the holy grail for collectors isn't just its scarcity or its performance potential. The Phase IV represents a pivotal moment in Australian automotive history, the exact point where the golden age of muscle cars collided with political reality. It's the physical embodiment of what might have been had the supercar scare never occurred. Imagine if the Phase IV had reached production and dominated at Bathurst as intended. The engineering advancements would have filtered down to regular production models, potentially reshaping the entire trajectory of Australian performance cars. Instead, we're left with 4 enigmatic vehicles that exist as artifacts of an alternate timeline, one where Australia's muscle car evolution continued uninterrupted. For the handful of people fortunate enough to own any of Australia's rarest muscle cars, selling would be unthinkable. These vehicles have consistently appreciated at rates that make traditional investments look pedestrian, with some models seeing value increases exceeding 10,000% since they were new. But their significance transcends mere financial considerations. So there you have it, Australia's rarest and most extraordinary muscle cars. But while we've covered the legends from the factory floor, there's still hope for lucky enthusiasts across the country. Each year, forgotten treasures emerge from decades of storage in rural sheds and country barns, sometimes fetching life-changing sums at auction. These barn finds have become the modern treasure hunt of the automotive world. Just last year, a dust-covered Falcon GT discovered in a Queensland farm shed sold for triple its expected value after bidders realized its matching number status. Another collector stumbled upon a forgotten Charger E49 that had been sitting untouched since 1983, immediately adding a 7-figure asset to his portfolio. The Australian muscle car renaissance isn't just about history, it's an ongoing story. So next time you're driving through the countryside and spot an old tarp-covered shape in a weathered shed, it might be worth a closer look. After all, automotive legends aren't just made on racetracks, sometimes they're quietly waiting to be rediscovered.